Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to our Horizen Weekly Insider number 46. Happy Thursday to you all. Please remember that this call is being recorded and is going to be available here later on our YouTube channel as well as in our podcast. Please remember to also ask your questions so we can have a regular Q&A session at the end. I'll welcome now Luca from the engineering department.
Thank you, Angie. Last week, we announced that the beta preview was out, and we also asked developers from our community to take a look at it. And the answer was very fast. We had multiple people testing it out and providing feedback. So those feedbacks were, let me say, collected, analyzed, and answered. They were very valuable to us, and maybe Alberto will mention them in a minute. So my message to you would be, please keep doing that, keep testing, and keep asking your questions, because this will help us improving. As I mentioned last time, most of the action takes place in the Discord channel named Sidechains. And we also have 2 team members from the engineering team available to provide answers to any doubt you may have. Alberto, R&D Director of Horizen, is here with us today to tell us what we are currently working on. So please, Alberto, feel free to jump in.
Thank you, Luca. Okay, yes, after having published beta preview, we have already started working on the pending tasks on mainchain, like minor issues that we wanted to solve before beta and so on. We're already working on them, and we're proceeding quite well. On the SDK side, we are also working on some post-beta changes. Something that we already planned to have after beta. But also, as Luca just mentioned, on a couple of issues that have been identified by the community. In particular, just to mention the last fix that we did, for example, allows now a more intuitive way for asking for a withdrawal request in the sidechain. And this is done by specifying the mainchain address in the usual way. We do it also in mainchain. And the fix have been already done, and it's already merged in the main branch on the SDK side. Okay, regarding the Zendoo main chain and sidechain CryptoLibs and GingerLib, we're also improving some security checks regarding some cryptographic primitives, and we expect in the next days also to have some pull requests ready to be reviewed and merged. Okay, regarding the post-beta activities, we are already working on a Poseidon hash Merkle tree implementation that needs to be able to manage trees with millions of leaves. And we are talking about the Merkle tree that will manage the UTXOs on the sidechain side. That, if you remember, this is going to be also, the state will be got from this Merkle tree, and this must be proved. Okay, as you can imagine, this big tree and the implementation of this big tree requires a lot of attention, especially to performances of each micro element of this part. And this is because, for example, when we are processing the state transitions in this UTXO Merkle tree that are caused by applying a block. So if we have a block with 10 transactions or 1,000 transactions, and each one generate a transition in this Merkle tree, we need to, manage these changes in the Merkle tree. And so we have to apply several changes to this tree. So with a tree of that size, this can be quite intensive. So the first implementation that we had was too slow in managing such changes, and we had, I mean, totally different kind of expectations. So we have been working on identifying another way for managing these changes, for making this calculation a lot faster. And now we have a new solution that from our tests, we improved the changes, I mean, that, for example, were applied by a block by 133 times faster than the original one. So this is something that for sure make the numbers much better than before. Okay, last but not least, in the process of improving documentation available for developers, we also decided to build an example of a customized sidechain. In particular, we have already started working on a car registry sidechain, and so the goal is to have to put the developer in a condition where they will be able to see all the changes that are needed to implement such kind of application on top of the SDK. And so we hope that this will simplify, the process of designing these blockchain applications and developing them. And I think that's all. Thanks.
Quite an impressive improvement on performances. 133 times faster.
Yeah. I didn't expect it so much.
Well, it was a nice surprise.
Yeah, in fact.
So this was it. Thank you, Alberto. If you want to listen to more engineering updates, make sure to attend our next community live stream planned for 1st of July. Thank you, and back to Angie.
Thank you, Alberto and Luca. Let's continue with Alan for the node updates.
Okay, hello everybody. Now that priorities have changed a little bit, we are getting back to some of the updates that have been already completed or coded for the node tracking system. We're in the process of testing those and hope to get an update out with some bug fixes and changes in the near future, maybe even beginning of next week. Also, we'll be working on investigating how exchanges can potentially stake nodes. So we're looking at what kind of changes might be needed to the tracking system to be able to handle that. And that's what we've been working on for the tracking system for now. Back to you, Angie.
Thank you, Alan. Let's continue now with Ruben for the Helpdesk Updates.
Hey guys, Ruben here. I will be giving you today the Helpdesk report of this week. So this week, as you can see on the plots that Nether is posting, we had a total of 92 tickets, and 66.3% come from the faucet, and the remaining 33.7% is described in the bar chart below. So let's jump in with the faucet. So the most common issue within the faucet was a payment issue that happened last week. It was solved within the same day thanks to the fast reaction of our developers, and all pending payments were cleared at the same time. I will also take the opportunity to give a big shout out to Medar for the excellent work and great customer care he's giving on the support desk. Also, thanks to our devs for fixing the payment issue pretty quickly. And I would also like to take this opportunity to welcome Anon to our support team. She has already excelled our trainings, and with her onboarding on the support team, we will now be able to provide French support with a native French speaker. Okay, so on the Sphere side, the most common issue was users having problems to remember the login credentials, or in worst case scenario, forgetting their seed phrase. So for the case of people forgetting their credentials, we provide them the necessary instructions on how to restore their funds in Sphere. And always remember, guys, to store your backup phrase safely. Okay, so on the customer satisfaction side, we got a total of 4.7 out of 5, almost a perfect grade, from a total of 15 users reviewed. And that's it from the Helpdesk reports. Back to you, Angie.
Thank you, Ruben. Let's continue with Chronic for some infra updates.
Hello, everybody. So after it was all hands on deck on Sidechains, we're getting back to working at our backlog. So for me, this means no tracker, and we made good progress, as Alan already said. And we've also been able to add a block explorer for our Chinese community, which is available under explorer-china.Horizen Global. And this explorer has just been started up, so it's currently syncing. We will probably have synced the blockchain by tomorrow, and it will be fully available then. And we hope that it will be reachable from the Chinese mainland, because right now there are issues with reaching the block explorers, which are hosted through Cloudflare in China. And this explorer is hosted in Hong Kong through AliCloud. And we've made a relatively large effort to test a couple of providers. We got feedback from people in mainland China, made a lot of tests to ping the new instances that we've tested. And I hope that this will work out for everyone. Back to you, Angie.
Thank you, Chronic. Let's continue with Gustavo for the UX updates.
Hey everyone, happy Thursday. So these last few weeks we've been working on the Horizen developer environment, and for all those that don't know what's the Horizen developer environment, it's our platform that incentivizes open source contributions to the Horizen ecosystem and cultivates collaboration among developers, and it's also part of our effort to make the project more accessible. So it's going live in the next hour, so it's been a continuous effort for the last few months. So congrats to the whole team, and particular Jonas, Tuan, Hoang, Linda, and also Rob for the vision. So I'm really excited with that. And yeah, it's pretty much it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Gustavo. Let's continue now with Rowan for some BD updates.
Hello, everyone. Okay, main update from me today is in relation to the outreach we've been doing to bring exchanges into the fold in terms of offering staking type products to their users. The first big exchange has now formally announced that they're supporting Zen nodes, and that is Huobi. So Huobi ran into a couple of different issues throughout this process that really made us start to think about how we could make this kind of onboarding for larger exchanges a little bit easier. And that's why we have now Alan and Chronic working on a couple of strategic changes to the node tracking system, which we'll talk about in more detail in weeks to come. But regardless, Huobi are pressing ahead. They have announced support. The way it's going to work is that users can basically take the Zen that is in their Huobi account or deposit new Zen into their Huobi account, and they then lock it up into one of the time periods they can select. So it's 7 days, a month, or 3 months. And depending on how long you lock it up, you earn a differing reward, and they'll also give you a little bit of a bonus, obviously, for locking it up for longer. The main problem they encountered was the kind of infrastructure requirements for actually getting Zen payments to individuals. So they've went down the route of adding the Zen staking to the HPT mining section of their Huobi pool for the time being. And what that basically means is that you're staking Zen in order to mine their Huobi pool token. So that's the way that integration is going to work for the time being. If we can make a few tweaks, that might change in the future, but we'll see how things go. But great to see support from a very large exchange like Huobi, and great to have them pushing Horizen to their users. So big thanks to the Huobi team for the support there. Other ongoing projects at the moment, talked about them a few times. These are longer term things. Still have my toe dipped in the dev outreach section, trying to persuade some of the kind of friendly software companies to come and have a conversation with us and try out our SDK and have a little poke around to see what they think and to start thinking about what they could potentially build, get involved in the process. Merchant adoption is really the big one for me and my team at the moment. We are, as I said last time, still in the early phases. We're not going to be pivoting the organization to really put huge effort into this. At the moment, it's all about figuring out what the battle plan looks like and making sure we understand exactly what we need in terms of tools and resources, so that when we are ready to flip our attention over to merchants, we can do that effectively. Also tying up the adoption kind of research project that I did very, very little with, to be honest. I shouldn't even really be talking about it. Rolf headed this up, pulled in Maurizio and I for a little bit of input, and has now compiled a really cool kind of research report, which I'm just about to spend some time reading after this, which is why I'm mentioning it, Rolf. So I know I'm due you some replies, and I'll get them to you very, very soon. Beyond that, we're still doing standard exchange and wallet outreach. Got a couple of pretty interesting conversations ongoing at the moment. My main personal targets are the big exchanges that still don't support Horizen. I think 3 years in, and with the level of technology we're bringing to market, it's just insane that there's still some large exchanges not supporting Zen trading pairs. So my mission for the rest of the year is to fix that. And that's pretty much it from me at the moment. Vano, if you want to jump in with an update from your side, I know you had a couple of calls this morning. Please feel free to do so.
Hello, everyone. So some of our community might have already seen that we started upgrading our descriptions across the board with way more information about Horizen and our products, like our cryptocurrency, Zen, Sidechains, Zendu, nodes, and Faucet. CoinMarketCap has already upgraded, and more will follow it, obviously. And also, talking about CoinMarketCap, one of our community members asked in our Telegram channel yesterday if Zen on Bitrabbit exchange listed at CoinMarketCap was the same as Zen on other exchanges, because it was way cheaper. And it turned out that there is a Ethereum smart contract project called Zen Chain listed at Bitrabbit, using the same ticker symbol but costing several cents for one token. So that caused a misunderstanding. CMC has already fixed the issue by removing Bitrabbit peer from our page, and for the community, please be careful, and if you find out that any particular exchange offers Zen for a hugely different price from the market average, always double check, and if still in doubt, ask for clarification in our Discord, Telegram or support channels. Yeah, other than that, not yet able to share publicly, but we are pretty close to announcing pretty large Eastern European exchange partnership, and hopefully very soon we will be able to give our community more information about that. That's all from me, and back to you, Angie.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Now let's welcome Jonathan to give us the marketing updates and the growth updates as well.
Hey, everybody. Good morning. So on the marketing side, just a reminder that next Wednesday, July 1st, is the live stream. So definitely come in and participate and ask questions and leave comments, and we're excited to see you. On the growth side, this week we're focusing on some small SEO updates. For example, making sure all the headers are correct, making sure we have sitemaps, things like that. We're brainstorming how to improve the referral system on the faucet. We think there's some work that could be done there to make it a lot easier for users to share. We're also working on the new homepage for Horizen.global, which is focusing on sidechains. And lastly, like Chronic mentioned, the China market will hopefully be opening up pretty soon. And so one of the things we have in the coming months is a China-specific faucet, which will help us to attract some of the people living in China who can't access the faucet currently. So that'll be great to expand the ecosystem and spread the Zen message around the globe. That's it for me today. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Let's continue with Dean for some legal updates.
Thank you, Angie. Just wanted to give a quick update. Yesterday, we had the Zen Blockchain Foundation board thank you to everyone who participated in making the board deck, and especially Rowan and Michelle for making the financial matters deck. So anyway, it was a big success. Thank you to everyone. And before I end, I'll just say, Angie, I listened to your your lecture in Spanish, and I loved it. And I could understand 85%, so I was very proud of myself. That's it from my side.
Awesome. Yay, glad you liked it. And yes, I try to be very self-explanatory in Spanish, so good. Okay, so now let's welcome Rosario for product and engineering updates.
Hey, Angie, looks like you have another fan, and I'll join that bandwagon with being an Angie fan. So we're starting, and I've mentioned this a few times before, so hopefully I don't sound like a broken record, but we are entering a new phase where we're targeting developers to start building on Horizen. And that's both on the sidechain side and also on the main chain side. So there's two separate paths that are ongoing at this time. But what does this mean? So we'll need to refine, and we are refining a strategy on how to host developer tools that are written by the community. So this means other tools that perhaps are the internal team won't be managing, but tools that external developers, community developers will be hosting. So this is a bit of a shift, and I look forward to refining this so we can have community developers expand on the Horizen developer toolset. The developer outreach began just this last week. So congrats to the team on the soft launch of HDE. When Rob had this vision 6 months ago, it seemed too early to start the effort, but I'm glad that Rob pushed it, and Jonas has been pushing with very limited resources. And of course, Gustavo and Tuan played a great role in HDE. So please visit the HDE website. And right now we have just one task available, but we will be making additional tasks available as we go. But we just want to make sure that we are ironing out the kinks of the site before we do a strong promotion. So regarding developer outreach as well with HEAP, we have over 200 participants right now in the program, and we're hoping to have a webinar in July. And of course, this is all coinciding with actual development that needs to continue. But this is also good for our developers as they go through the tool sets themselves and develop procedures to launch the sidechains in a bit more productive fashion. So far we have 133 downloads of the SDK, and that's great news for us. Continue testing it out and seeing and posting issues on Sidechains channel or on GitHub directly. So Sphere had a total of 4 high priority production issues that were resolved by Paolo, and code review for those will be done in the next weeks. Paolo will move his focus to implementing the backward transfer functionality to Sphere. So as you recall me mentioning previously, beta will include a user interface component. So Sphere will be able to manage your sidechains through Sphere. So that's going to be Paolo's next focus. Right now, there is the forward functionality that's already present in the Sphere sidechain, and now he'll focus on that backwards functionality. So, just to summarize, there's not going to be any additional bug fixes on Sphere that are unless they're critical bugs. We will be participating in a DCG developer demo. And that's been rescheduled to July, so we look forward to participating in that. And let's see, and that's it. So I think that's Alberto summarized very well. We are moving into the next phases of development. So continue testing. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Rosario. Rolf, would you like to add any updates or comments?
Yeah, sure will. Rowan alluded to this, and we've been hinting at it in the last few weeks. So Rowan and Maurizio and I have done a research and a set of recommendations. We're calling it Horizen Booster Rocket, a strategy for adoption. And going to provide a copy to the team, and marketing can use it as they wish. And we've looked at many different use cases for crypto, and we wanted to look at what can we do right now. Are there things that we're missing? And we talked with P. Stu and Chronic and Debman. They had great ideas, and we kind of thought about it and massaged different things and came up with a strategy called "Hit 'em where they ain't," surprise and least resistance. And the thrust of the recommendations is basically don't fight an uphill battle. Focus on where there's an active need and desire for what Zen can offer. And don't try to replace something where there's already a well-working system in place. And so what most of the crypto space has thought about is replacing payments. And payments to person or person to vendor, they're usually done with local currency. Most vendors have a method that already works. And so to get over the hurdle of changing the way payments are done, it has to be markedly better. And so private payments are overall a minority of transactions, also, even though they're very useful in some situations. So it seems like payments would be the most used, but surprisingly it isn't. And Rowan did a lot of good research on all the different projects that are out there and what they're used. And we surprisingly came up with what there is that's of interest, that's really not well addressed, and where there's an opportunity. And so by far, gaming is the biggest use. And this can be simple gaming, like a gambling or an in-game currency, or games like Crypto Kitties, Steam Monsters, all sorts of games. It can be even simple web or mobile implementations that are like games of chance and skill, like roulette, poker, duck hunt, battleship, whatever. Now, sidechain applications are really going to be the best way of doing gaming applications. And they're also going to be probably the best way for private payments, private messaging, rapid person-to-person transactions, and a whole bunch of other applications. And the thing is, these fully developed and tested sidechain applications aren't really going to be in full production on the main chain likely till 2021. Doesn't mean that we can't start developing all those sidechain applications in parallel with going to production, and that's something that we should totally do. But what can we do right now to get online and mobile developers to use Horizen in games? Well, some of the things, and there's a lot more of it in the report, I'm just giving you a big picture summary. First is we tell them that we're focusing on it, that we care about it, and that we're going to work with them to implement features that help them to use Zen in games. Seems obvious, but it's not obvious. You have to tell people what your intentions are and then tell them and show them how they can use it. So next, we publish libraries in popular and active languages to assist game developers. For example, JavaScript, Java, Python, Kotlin. I'm sure there's a bunch of other languages that would be useful to have for libraries. And these libraries would be to use lightweight wallets to start out with. And then adding documentation form, examples, developer assistance. Then we start adding features that people want. And we keep adding the features and additional things as needs are identified and requests are made. So this strategy focuses on a need, enables developers, makes hackathons easier to do, certainly, lays the foundation for a community of gaming developers to work with Horizen now and in the future on sidechains. It's also got the added benefit. It doesn't require a lot of additional Horizen developer work, and it fits in well with the Horizen developer environment and the Horizen Early Access program. So anyway, that's the big picture.
Thank you, Rolf. And now let's welcome Rob for the final part and Q&A session.
Thank you, Angie. How's my voice coming through, guys? I've had some technical challenges today with my computer. Is this okay?
Good. Yeah,
okay.
It's good.
Awesome. Well, hey, Rolf, thank you for giving that teaser. I was actually going to mention, and I'll expand on some of that stuff without going into too much detail, because I can say the report's absolutely awesome and spot on. So I think it's such a great bridge for making the system as useful as possible today, while we're still building towards the tomorrow where we have Zendu and SDK on Mainnet, and we can really turbocharge utilization of our network. Okay, so I'm gonna take a different direction with the first thing I'm gonna note, and this is piggybacking on Dean's point that yesterday we had a successful foundation board meeting. So yes, everyone, we actually have a board and we actually have proper governance as a nonprofit corporation in the US. So That means we have to follow certain rules, certain regulations, certain guidelines on how we do business. And I'm very happy that this formalization process for governance has been coming together nicely and resulting in this most recent board meeting. So the goal is to do these quarterly. We have an independent board that's, and by independent, I mean independent from financial incentives that might be linked to other corporations that work within our ecosystem. So that's, again, very important. The board meetings are presided over by Fenwick & West, a very prestigious law firm, and Dean, our very own Dean Steinbeck, our general counsel. So done very well professionally, everything documented well. So I'm very happy with how things went. To give you a little flavor of what we talked about, besides the obvious of Zen2 is a major topic that we talked about yesterday, the roadmap that we're accomplishing, our strategy, why we're doing what we're doing, and then of course how we're doing what we're doing. Are we meeting our own internal KPIs or not? And then we go over financials, we go over budget. The board approves the budget formally, and in general, I think I have to reiterate Dean's point that the slide deck that we presented yesterday was absolutely fantastic. And we actually got feedback that this is an abnormally good deck. And this is the deck that we're going to be modifying and using for next week's live stream. So everyone will be able to enjoy the fun as well. Okay, so let's move on here. And I'm gonna give a quick comment on the strategy shift that we've been talking about for a little bit of time now, and what we're finally going live on. And you're hearing bits and pieces of it. But the strategy shift is on our community growth and how we're doing engagement. So we're focusing heavily now on developer community building. Why haven't we done this sooner? And this could be the question. And it has been, we've been waiting kind of on pins and needles to actually kick off this program. And we could be questioned, why didn't we do this sooner? Well, I'll just say, quite frankly, I didn't think that by pushing community development earlier significantly and resourcing it gave us money, or we didn't really have the competitive advantages in that particular area to make it as successful as I wanted it to be. Now, that's not to say that we shouldn't have been doing smaller dev bounties and so forth and compiling different tools in the open source domain, but that just wasn't the strategy we took. We took the strategy of building this absolutely fantastic professional in-house engineering team that can tackle extremely complex, sophisticated software problems and actually deliver on them in high quality, way above average quality. And that's just the strategy that we took. But now, with Zen2 and the SDK, we actually have that competitive advantage that I was waiting for to now kick off and really press the gas pedal on this developer community growth. So that's what we're doing now. And you're going to see this manifest in a number of ways. So we're with Zen2 beta preview, just fundamentally, you're seeing the software and the tools actually being published or have already been published. And now we're going through, it's a race to actually modify the SDK ourselves and come up with that first example application that Alberto mentioned, which is the car registry. So this is a very simple private property registry, so you guys can all register your Lambos and your Ferraris on our Zen2 car registry. But importantly, what it gives developers is a nice step-by-step, well-documented example of how they can extend the SDK into their own useful application domain. Whatever application they want to go in and extend it into, it's at least that initial guideline. So that's really important. We've launched the Horizen Early Adopter Program, HEAP. This is something that we launched with a variety of assets, including a testnet faucet. This gives a first cohort of over 200 developers early access into the SDK, into documentation, webinar with us, and really just gives them a direct contact with our engineering team so that they can deploy the SDK and actually launch their own sidechain. So that's the goal of this program. The first, most simple goal is deploy a sidechain. That's it. Bottom line, deploy a sidechain using the SDK. And then we want substantive feedback. So the more substantive feedback we get, we can incorporate into documentation, into lessons learned, into knowledge base, presentations, future webinars, tutorials, and so forth. So this is a critical phase. And ultimately, if you developers who are part of HEAP today love what you see, and it's exciting, and I think it will be, I hope it is, we want you to increase your participation, and we take your feedback extremely seriously. And it's a very valuable, meaningful contribution to the project. So no feedback is too trivial to provide, and we want to hear and see it all. Let's see. So in conjunction with all of this, and I think this is a critical enabling factor, is where we're launching the HDE today, the Horizen Developer Environment. It's pretty awesome. So this is something that's been in works for the last 6 months, and like Rosario said, was not properly resourced early on, and that's just because we were in a very resource-constrained environment. So huge congratulations to Jonas, to Gustavo, to Tuan, to everyone who participated in making this possible with ridiculously under-resourced environment. But still, we're able to be scrappy and get things done. Now, what HDE gives us is this, facilitate or enabling tool for community development. And what we're going to do is we're launching with a single task, an open bounty on there for developers. But ultimately, we're going to be incorporating things like Rolf's study that he mentioned, the whole hit them where they ain't, and cluster certain tools that we want or truly we need for the ecosystem to develop in certain ways. So we have no intention of building out every single application or building out example applications in every potential industry vertical. That's not our job. What we're doing is we're providing the platform, the infrastructure, and the tools so that other competent developers can come in here and actually grab them and build in areas that they have expertise in that we just don't. So that's extremely exciting. HDE is a catalyst because here's where we're going to be curating these clusters of opportunities, like the example that Rolf gave of gaming. It is an absolutely fantastic and perfect use case domain for where people could be building within our ecosystem. So to accompany that and actually action the advice from this report is we're going to carve out different development opportunities to either grab existing open source tools that are already out there in the wild or develop certain ones that will make building gaming applications just much easier in our ecosystem. So that's just one example. The other big cluster of opportunities within HDE will be related to Zendu and the SDK. So we want to see a lot of different applications built with the SDK. And yes, this is on a parallel testnet. Yes, it's not even on our main testnet. There will be a migration to a main testnet. And Rosario has mapped out a very elegant 4-phase approach to actually going from parallel testnet with Zendu to main chain. And there are interim steps in there. But developers today with the SDK can build today. And that's the important thing. And that's why we went forward with the beta preview when we did, was because the SDK is sufficiently mature for developers to actually start building their first applications. Now, the next big step here will be when we migrate from this parallel testnet to our main testnet. And this will be a huge opportunity for us to gain lessons learned, especially with application developers as we migrate their applications from one testnet to another testnet, because this will be an important parallel to when we go from testnet to mainnet. It's really important that we don't want to see all of the effort that's going into application developers building today on our testnet go to waste. What we want to do in the best case scenario is actually have this as an initial step where everyone's learning and we can reuse and extend what we're building here on testnet, and then ultimately migrate this over to the mainnet and have functional, working, very interesting applications for our community. So guys, I hope I've given you a sense that the bigger strategy here is starting to really culminate in tangible deliveries. So despite, like in the board meeting yesterday, we went through the financials and you could see there was a 70% collapse in Zen. We call it like a COVID collapse for when the pandemic hit. And we went from where we were pre-pandemic to where we were at the worst of the pandemic, or COVID crash. We've rebounded significantly, but we're nowhere close even to where we were beforehand. And despite this ridiculously volatile environment where our resource pool has significantly contracted, we're still delivering like crazy people. I mean, we're delivering absolutely fantastic, sophisticated software with Zendu, the SDK, an example application, the car registry application. Rolf's delivering a very sophisticated report on how we can extend tools into very useful clusters, in particular in gaming. And you're seeing HDE, you're seeing the Horizen Early Adopter Program put together in a matter of weeks by our marketing and engineering teams. I mean, this is, honestly, I take a step back here and I'm personally very humbled. And the team that we have working on this project is absolutely first class. So anyway, thank you very much to everyone who's working nonstop to make all of this possible, working weekends, working holidays, and doing so in many cases without even full pay. So guys, this is a huge inflection point for the project. this is where now we have a major competitive advantage, and we are an industry leader and a very important segment of technology here with sidechains. So the fund's just getting started. Thank you guys for your time, and I will pause here for any Menti questions that we have.
Awesome. Thank you, Rob. I'll cover the Menti questions part from Lucy this time. So the first question is, can you explain the House of Crypto game? It's unclear what this is and when it will be payable. Is there some way to earn SAN in playing?
I would love to describe the House of Crypto. So the House of Crypto is actually a game being put together by a very important advisor and supporter of our project. I don't know if he's being public about the fact that he's sponsoring it, but we're very fortunate to have such a friend of the project building it, because we're incorporating Zen in there, and we're going to have a House of Horizen. And this is going to be, in my opinion, an absolutely amazing game to play, because you're going to be able to compete with people across the cryptocurrency industry. And guys, we have to get out there and represent Horizen as best we can in a fun way. And yes, you're absolutely going to be able to earn Zen as you play. So I think that's the really cool element. Going along with the growth activities that Jonathan and team are doing, is we want to get Zen out there to as many people as possible. And the more engaging, fun ways we can do that, the better.
Awesome. Second question is the Horizen team considering steps to minimize the financial impact to the dev team and node operators post-halving in November?
That's an excellent question, and this was also an important topic in the board meeting yesterday. So it's a tough one. I'm making no predictions on where the price of Zen is going, but yes, we're absolutely budgeting, at least. So I'll tell you from the foundation perspective. Yes, we're putting together a worst case scenario of what happens if our budget actually gets cut in half in November. Now, I'll tell you from the perspective of a financial economist, yes, I see the possibility that the supply of Zen gets cut in half and our revenue is cut in half. But there are many other instances where having a new supply of Zen actually has a material impact on the market. I'm not going to make any predictions, but there's a whole part of the outcome distribution that is favorable to us and favorable to our infrastructure providers like node operators. Beyond that, so we can take proactive steps as an organization to budget and plan for worst case scenarios. There's not much we can do in terms of supporting, say, node operators. Now, the reality is we've constructed the node ecosystem so that there's a balancing equilibrium. So I think that there's some wisdom in the way that we built this, because ROI is that indicator, and ROI, say even a required rate of return for investors, is heterogeneous. And by that, I mean that there are many different people that provide our infrastructure for different reasons, some for purely financial reasons. And then even within that segment, there are different people that have different cost structures. So some people can run nodes more efficiently than others. And for people with different cost structures, I would say our marketplace is competitive such that if the price of Zen were to be cut in half, you would see a drop in the ROI, but then you would probably also see the equilibrium effects kick in, where some node operators would actually shut down their nodes, and then you would see some adjustment on ROI that comes to some equilibrium amount. Now, I don't want to go into too much of a rabbit trail here speculating, because the reality is we have no idea what's going to happen, but we are taking preemptive steps in the elements that we can control.
Great. And then the last question is, do you have anybody building on sidechains already?
So we do. I would say we're building on sidechains, but okay, I'll expand on this a bit. So we have a first developer cohort, and we just launched the program this week. So we don't have sample sidechains that are ready, for the public, but we have over 200 developers now actually signed up to build, and I think we had something like 140 downloads of the SDK. So we know that there are people that are actually downloading the SDK, cloning the repository, and launching sidechains. We don't have an indication yet of what kinds of cool apps are being built. I expect that this first cohort, it's all about testing out the tech and launching sidechains. Now we're building the car registry sidechain, so hopefully we can get this out to you guys in a matter of weeks. And this is going to inform our documentation. And so this is a really important one. Now, the other thing that I can say is we're not just focusing on the Horizen Early Adopter Program. We're also working with other dev shops, so software companies that specialize in blockchain or say want to specialize in blockchain, and we're actually getting them to test out the SDK and go through the process of learning the tools to see if this is a product that they want to offer to their own clients. To me, that's from a business strategy perspective, absolutely critical, because we don't want to be, like I said, we don't want to be the ones building all the apps, nor do we want just, to just throw the tools out there and hope that people come and build them. We also want to be aggressive, where we go out and we get other dev shops to come on and start plugging these, these products to their own pipeline of customers. So that's what we're doing. It's a heterogeneous approach to how we're doing this, or say a hybrid approach to how we're doing this. And we'll see where it goes. But hopefully in the coming weeks, we'll have a lot more to tell you guys.
Great. Thank you, Rob, for answering the questions. So I guess this is it. Please, we will be posting the rest of the questions here on the chat channel on Discord for you to check out later. And I hope to see you all very, very soon. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.